The following is a presentation of RMG Sports, award-winning championship television.
Coach Penna, thank you for joining us today. Thanks for coming all the way down Route 219 to see us here in Somerset. I want to talk to you about a couple things as far as this year, your career, all that. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch Trash Talk, but again, we don't have very high expectations for this show.
Okay.
I mean, we're kind of throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what happens. You know?
That's great.
But let's go back in your career and talk about maybe your first days of playing, at least at the high school level. Now, you started out at Ferndale, correct?
Yeah, I was at junior high. Yeah, then I went to Votech. I played for my dad at Votech.
That leads me to my next question.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, your dad's been coaching a long time, coaching a lot of different sports, big baseball coach, of course. His influence on you, not just as a person, but as a coach and your coaching style. If we put you next to him, what are the similarities? What are the differences?
There's a lot of things about us. A lot of the guys that coach with me coached with him or played for him. And I think the older I get, the more they tease me, the more I get like my dad. And I think that's inevitable in life.
I think that's in TV too.
The thing he teases me about is he calls me Riverboat Gambler. He's a little bit more conservative than I am. But at the end of the day, that's who made me who I am. So we're built the same way in a lot of ways. And I'm so fortunate at a very young age. He drugged me to be around when I wanted to be doing other things, to teach me, to give me that experience and that background. So at a young age, I already had a lot of varsity experience, and it was because of him and what he was able to, to teach me and get me to do.
Now, you were able to move on to play at the collegiate level as well, and you played locally here for the Red Flash. Tell me about that experience and how that helped you into coaching.
It was amazing. I was really lucky. It took me a while to get on the field there, but I had a lot of good coaches. I had a guy like Frank Blair who took a real interest in me, and I spent a lot of time in the coach's room, a lot of time watching film, and I learned a whole lot while I was working my way onto the field. And that experience was invaluable because it was the first time that I was away from the nest basically of my dad and working with some different people. And like I said, Coach Pergolizzi ran a great program. Coach Malek, they were really good guys, and I wasn't the star guy, and I wasn't a starter for 2 years. But also they spent a lot of time teaching me and also letting me be around the office, listen to what they were doing, and kind of knew that, being the son of a coach, I had that in me.
As a player there, it's a great experience for you to put in your pocket and now offer to your players now. Because here in the Laurel Highlands Conference, many times we do have some players going to D1, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but the D2, D3 is usually the ground that they go to keep, if they're lucky enough to keep playing football.
Yeah.
You have a lot of experience at that. What are you able to tell your players now? What kind of experience are you able to share with them to help them move on to keep playing in their 13th year or their freshman year on into college?
It's interesting. The first thing you have to tell them is enjoy the ride, because college football is fun, but it's definitely different. It changes a little bit. It's a little bit more of a business. Not that the college coaches don't put a personal touch, but it's their business and it's their livelihood. So it's not the same as high school. But I mean, what we can tell them is and we've talked to a lot of coaches, is just do what you're coached to do here, and anything you need to change, they'll change for you. And I think that's the greatest misconception with going to college, and kids start trying to prepare in 10th grade for what they're going to do in college. You may be a linebacker in high school, and they want to watch you play linebacker. They don't necessarily need to see you at safety, so you're already preparing for college. I think in this culture, we have this college-going culture and this scholarship, and everyone trying to move on. Everyone's trying to play way too far ahead. So what I try to say is, be where your feet are, be in the moment, and just enjoy this ride. Work your hardest, be the best product you can be, and those coaches will see where you fit into their system.
Now, as you have players going through the recruiting process, because it is a process.
It is.
How do you help them with your experience in college and now as a coach of over a decade? How do you help them through that process?
Well, the first step is the academics. I mean, you have to have the grade. So if they don't have that in line, then we're in trouble. So we start in 9th grade, and we're lucky to have great support systems at Johnstown. We have a college access center that helps us. So we start in 9th grade with the academics. And then after that point, we kind of help them filter through everything because they're getting a lot of contacts. And there's some schools that will send you letters and letters and letters that really are don't mean a whole lot. And then there's some schools who are really interested in you, and then there's some schools who, who might not be. So it's helping them kind of gauge, working with their family, because we always say it's a family decision, and we try to guide them through that process, which can be really tough. And it works all kind of different ways. There's kids who are stressed because they have no offers, then there's kids who are stressed because they have so many offers. So every situation is kind of different and unique. And I tell the kids a lot of times, it's kind of a lot of times like guys picking a girl or girls picking a guy. A certain coach may think this of you and somebody else may not. So it's kind of like that courting process, and you're trying to help them filter through that. And like I said, I've seen both sides of it, and it's very stressful for the kids and the families.
I said you've been in coaching for well over a decade. You took over Greater Johnstown in 2010, but before that, you were offensive coordinator, went to Ferndale for a year, then came back to the Trojans, and that's where you've been ever since in 2010. You've been an offensive coordinator prior to taking over as head coach. How exciting was it when you got the reins to the entire program? I mean, your offense, and you're sitting there with the clipboard, you're coming up with plays, you're handling one end, but you had to be thinking that, if you had plans to be a head coach, boy, we'd do this differently on defense. Maybe we'd change this, maybe we'd do that. Yeah. Now you finally had the reins to someone like Greater Johnstown. How exciting was that?
I honestly have to tell you, and this is sometimes when I walk out the practice, I have to kind of pinch myself because, we were at VOTEC and I enjoyed that and was very loyal to my school, but didn't have a big following, and then came to coach at Johnstown. And it's like I'm in the grocery store my first year. I'm the second string line coach, and some lady with no Trojan gear on asked me how the team's doing. So there was such a big fanfare, and I never foresaw myself ever being the head coach. So, and I'm lucky with guys like Bob Arcurio took an interest in me and mentored me and gave me an opportunity in the school board. But it's like sometimes I still have to pinch myself. So I never saw myself being that. I also wasn't prepared for all that came with it. You think you are. And I remember my dad telling me I was frustrated at a young age, will I ever get a chance? And my dad's like, well, are you sure you're prepared? And you're not. And you learn so much on the fly. So I tell people all the time, the last 2 years, I finally felt a little bit comfortable, but it was such a learning process, and you only learn by doing. So there's been good, there's been bad, and you're always going to learn. But it's just like I still have to pinch myself, and I make sure when we go to these playoff games and good things happen, and you're out there and you kind of soak in the moment because through my career I've had the ups and downs, and you never know when the good one's coming next.
First year as a head coach, came out with both barrels blazing, went 10-2, went into the playoffs, and lost to Clearfield. This season, went into the playoffs. And let me tell you, you guys, I think I put on Twitter, #GiantKiller, because you went in, it seemed like you went into the playoffs, where you would eventually play Clearfield and win, with not a chip on your shoulder, but a cinder block on your shoulder.
Absolutely.
No one expected you to get past Somerset. And then everyone expected Clearfield to make it to where they were, but everyone was expecting for the third year in a row, Clearfield, Somerset. Here comes the Johnstown Trojans. How did you prepare your team? What was the magic dust you sprinkled on your team?
Well, I think first of all, the kids started in the summer with a whole different attitude. We brought in some new guys. Coach Gibson and Coach Smith had kind of started this training regimen. We were running South Street in Kernville, which is one of our things. And we went back there after the BG game and kind of refocused. But we kept saying to ourselves, we're always trying to put not a spin, but we're always trying to figure things out. I said, guys, listen. You lost 3 games by a total of 9 points, and you lost to 2 11-0 teams. This is where you're at right now. This is where you are as a team. I said, we haven't played our best game yet, because when we went back to those games, the year before we were 7-3, but we weren't even in 2 of those 3 games. It's like when you go back and look at those games, you can actually identify how close you really were. And we said, listen, it's a new season. And it was almost like the kids were like, we went from no expectations to high expectations to probably underachieving, and they were like, okay, it is a new season. I could just kind of see that spark in them. And then when we went into halftime down 14-0 to Clearfield, the look in their face, they just totally believed that they were going to be just fine, because we'd outplayed them in the first half, but made some of those mistakes that had got us to 5-5. And we were like, hey, if we clean this up, we think we'll be okay.
One of the reasons for your success, not the only reason, but one of the reasons, a young man by the name of Jeremy Updike played very well, scored some huge numbers. As an offensive-minded coach, before we get into him too much, I'm going to jump ahead. How do you replace a kid like that? Now, everybody has to do it. I know, and we talk about it all the time because it's something that's it's not unique to high school, because I deal with it in collegiate, but whenever you're in high school, you got to take what you get. How are you, he got a lot of playing time and his backup maybe didn't. How do you prepare the Trojans for next year with Updike gone? And can you even replace him? I don't know.
I don't know that you can. And his Updike, his replacement, his backup got hurt in week 2. So he didn't have JV time, and Austin Barber, and he's a nice player. But yeah, I don't know that you ever do. I mean, Jeremy, he's been a 3-year starter, and I always tease him. I said the next toughest thing to being head coach at Johnstown is being the quarterback, because our fans have such high expectations, and he gets to hear, for a young kid, he gets to hear the same things I do sometimes from our fans. Most of it out of love and passion. But I don't know that you can. I mean, especially the experience part of it. Like I said, over these last 6 years, I learned so much by doing. Jeremy did the same thing. He learned so much by doing, and to the point where he was in complete control this year, and he was an absolute extension of me. And I was just talking to him the other day, and we really took some time to enjoy the ride because we're both competitors of the same degree, and sometimes that friction, and we really took some time before the games, on the field. Like, he only plays offense, so while the defense is warming up, we took some time to really soak it in and enjoy the moment, and be patient with each other, more on my end than his, to really enjoy the fight and the battle. And the thing about Jeremy is he has one extra step when the game's on the line. A sack he may not have avoided in the first or second quarter, he has that when it counts to get away. And I mean, that was obvious as in our playoff run.
I was going to say, it seems like a very smart player.
Oh,
when
brilliant.
we're watching him in game tape, the games that we covered, there were times when he threw it away. Smart play. There were times when he ran out of bounds. Get out of bounds, save yourself, save the clock. And I can't tell you how many times we said that's a smart play.
Yeah,
that's a smart play.
Very smart kid. He's 4.0 student. I mean, and very smart, like a student of the game. And he got himself to that point with a lot of hard work, and a lot of perseverance is the word with him. Because like I said, as a 10th grader, not only the kids being frustrated, and it's hard to appreciate how tough that position is, and he handled it so well with grace over 3 years. And I don't know that you replace a kid like that.
Young man whose records that he broke was another smart quarterback. You had Javon Simon, who will be playing in the Army-Navy game this weekend. Now, I'm a Marine, so I have to root for the Navy. I hate rooting for the Navy in anything, but as a Marine, I have to, because I know there's future Marines there.
Yeah.
But we'll also be pulling for Javon Simon, who plays defensive back. Keep an eye on him. Smart kid, just one name in a long list of Trojans that have gone to D1 to play football. What are you guys doing differently there at Greater Johnstown that's helping these guys advance? I mean, they're great players, but we have a lot of great players in the conference. We see a lot of guys going from Greater Johnstown to D1.
I think that I have to go back to when I started there. I mean, first of all, we have tremendous kids. I mean, and tremendous athletes, and we're very blessed by that. And I think it goes back to Bob Arcurio. I can remember when Stephens-Howling was playing there, and Bob and I was, younger then and very brand new to the process because we didn't have a lot of kids highly recruited at Votech. And Bob kept saying, this is so important for everybody else. This isn't just about Larod or our program. He saw that door opening, and I can remember being in his office, and one of the things he shared with us, he brought a lot of us coaches in and let us share any experiences when Walt Harris was there and Dave Wanstack, because they both had recruited Larod, and they were asking him questions. I remember Dave Wanstack saying, well, how many kids go Division I out of this area? And Coach really felt that was going to open the door, and it did. And I think that's what happened. And once Larod did it and went in as a kid who people were saying was too small, and then did it, it's like, okay, maybe they do play a good brand of football. Then the kids from McCourt went. Then we had some more kids go, and Antoine Reed came along. And it's like, wow, maybe there's something there. And it gives all the kids in their local. When the kid from Carroll went to Ohio U, it starts from there. And I said, it all starts, first of all, with the great talent and the great athletes. And then on top of it, I think we've built some relationships with some schools where there's a trust. And I think it's like if they have to see them play and say, okay, well, we can compare him to this kid. He was able to do it. Maybe he will be too.
You mentioned Coach Wanstatt, obviously when he coached for Pitt.
Yes.
There's always been a great connection, or in recent times there's been a great connection between Greater Johnstown and Pitt. Now that we hope that the coaching carousel has stopped, that revolving door has stopped at Pitt, they seem to have things lined up and ready to go. How are things now with them? I know Exree Lowe, I believe, is committed to them. How is the relationship now? Are we going to see more Trojans become Panthers?
I mean, it never kind of went away because the people behind the scenes are what make things go. Bob Junko is one of the greatest guys who's ever been involved in high school sports and college sports. He really cares about the kids. He's old school. He's been at Pitt the whole time. He's been the mainstay, along with Chris LaSala as the football AD, and they've always taken a special interest in us. I mean, they afforded us opportunities. I've been a Pitt fan my whole life, and I got to work football camp with those guys. It was like fantasy camp, and we got paid to be down there with them. So they've always maintained that relationship with us, took good care of us. So the core people have stayed, and they've kept respect the class and the integrity of the program. And then you get a guy like Coach Narduzzi, I mean, who's just so personable. We went down there in the spring for a visit at practice. He talked to each one of our kids. He talked to us, and no knock on the coaches before him, but it was more that feel what Dave Wants said. It was such a personal touch. And Tyler Boyd was so good with our kids. Our kids were like, I think he'll talk to us. He took pictures with them. I mean, you know, they're doing the things the right way down there. And Coach Narduzzi he has that that everyone sees. And you know, the defensive coordinator and the defensive back coach were in my office on Friday for a while as they headed to the Berlin game. So it was great. They came to see X-Ray, but they got a chance to see the kids from Berlin, and they were real interested. They were at the game on the field. So we're in the kid business. You're in the kid business. You guys promote kids. I'm hoping that we can help all the kids. I mean, there's a kid right down the street here, this Heupel kid who's outstanding, and the Barnes kid who deserve a chance. So we all work together as coaches to make sure all of our kids get promoted, because after we compete, we're all in the same business.
Beyond college and the long list of college players Greater Johnstown has produced, we also have some great NFL connections. Right now, you have a former NFLer on your staff, Artrell Hawkins. Now, there was a bit of drama when he came back to town. We've got to talk about it a little bit. Hired on to Coach McCourt, and that's his alma mater. All of a sudden, now wait, he's not the coach of McCourt. And everybody's left kind of scratching their head what's going on. I'm sure he was too. How did you get this man to cross the bridge, come over to the dark side, so to speak, come over to the rival Greater Johnstown Trojans? How did you get him on your staff?
I think that it's not probably as complicated or as intensive as people realize. I mean, you know, again, we talk about being in the kid business, and we had worked some camps with Artrell, and even as Artrell was coming back to McCourt, I think he had a plan to work with a lot of the different athletes in the area. And when this whole process started, you know, he had went on TV and called me out, you know, and it was funny because I didn't know that the whole thing, I didn't know he was getting hired, obviously. I mean, no one knew it. And then they kind of announced it, and then all of a sudden I was in my attic, and I start getting all these text messages. You gotta see this video. You gotta see this video. And it was him calling, Johnstown, we're coming for you, you know. So the funny part is I had left him a message when I heard he was appointed during the day and said, hey, good luck, best of luck 9 times out of the year. Well, then that happened, and he called me, and he's like, hey, you know, let me understand you. You have to, you know, he's a college pro guy, and he's like, we have to establish our rival. And we ended up talking for like 3 or 4 hours about football. And he was very open and honest about some of the things he had seen in the local sports, what he wanted to do for kids, and what his plans were coming back. And we continued that line of communication. And then whatever happened at McCourt happened. It depends who you ask, I guess. It was kind of a no-brainer. We had already been talking and planning on doing things for kids, even if he was there, even some unheard of, like maybe joint practices and stuff, to the point where it was like, hey, you know, do you want to come with us? And, you know, like I say, the rest is history.
What has he brought to the table? I mean, as a pro player, it's obvious, you know, he went to college, he went to the pro ranks. I mean, what's he teaching the kids now?
I mean, he brings such a knowledge of the defensive back play and coverages that were definitely, you know, fresh and combined well with the great athletes we had at those positions. You know, I can't just make it about him. You know, Tom Smith came from Richland with him, another great motivator, kids and a great mind. And, you know, we appointed Carlton Hasselberg as a defensive coordinator to work with him, another former NFL guy. And those 3 guys really took it and ran with it. You know, we had struggled defensively over the last 2 years, and we even struggled for half the year this year. And once they got comfortable and got things going, you know, we were pretty tough down the stretch.
Now, you're one of the only coaches, I believe, in the conference that in addition to having high school coaching experience, college playing experience, you also have pro coaching experience.
Yes, I do.
With the Johnstown Riverhawks. And that's when we first met years ago, when we first started RMG Sports, trying to get some sports ideas going. Don't get me started. It wasn't the Riverhawks that we had trouble. We had trouble with the Generals, and that's we're in a long list of people there with that. But that's a whole different type of game.
Yes.
Very fast-paced.
Yes.
But we see a lot of fast-paced offense with the Trojans. Are you bringing a little bit of that to the 100-yard field?
It's interesting. You know, I can remember when I first got there and they were explaining spacing on the field and how important it was to hold the boards. And I'm like, wow, that was the first time I realized, well, I'm really in a different arena, for lack of a better word. We had a kid from Carnegie Mellon who was a quarterback, and then Quinty Robinson was there, who's a brilliant football mind and still on my staff today. And they kind of had to explain to me how it worked. And, you know, you had to do things quick, and it was a lot about spacing, and that definitely translated out to where you had more space. And I absolutely took some of the stuff I learned there. But also, being able to call plays at that level. I was talking to the coaches from Pitt, the women's defensive coordinator, about being comfortable. And, I've been calling plays since 2005. And again, in the last couple of years, I finally got to the point where I felt in control, because there's so many moving parts. There's so many things going on. You can't appreciate it unless you've done it. So any chance you get a chance to call plays live, it's great. And that experience there against the great, because that league that year in particular, there's a lot of great teams and a lot of great athletes, and it was a learning experience. And I can remember they hired me halfway through the year, and I had to give my first speech. And I'm driving there thinking about what I'm going to say, and our tackle had just got done playing at Penn State, just played in the bowl game, and his last speech was from Joe Paterno. I'm thinking to myself, there's nothing I can say to this kid. Right. And, we had gone through some tough times, and there were some financial issues, and we kind of rallied the troops that way. But I'm thinking, man, I'm really stepping into big shoes. A bunch of guys my age or older, some of the guys I played with, it was very interesting. But definitely some things I took. I know there's one play in particular, we scored on it in the district championship game with X-Reload, that I definitely took from them, a double post concept. So I definitely learned a lot and very appreciative of that opportunity.
Now, you're, in addition to being one, I believe you're the only former head pro coach. Mm-hmm. You're one of the few that are also athletic directors, head football coach, also athletic director. So let's talk a little bit about, let's hop out of football, sort of, and talk about the reclassifications.
Okay.
Now, you guys are moving to Quad A next year,
yes.
correct? You and Somerset are still going to stay Quad A.
Yes.
What effect does that really have other than postseason?
None at all. I think the biggest concern, the one thing for me right now that I got to get some clarification on, is the whole point system, the power points. They're talking about doing away with those, and that's an interesting thing. And I don't know why, but that kind of makes our league unique. Like, if you beat us or Somerset, you almost are in the playoffs, because you get so many bonus points for us being trip away with all the single A teams. But also for us, if they just do it by class, it may be tougher for us in that division to make that top four. I mean, recently the top four, we have 8 teams in that 6, 3, 9, 10, 8 crazy compilation, but it's been the same 4 teams at the top. And now with these additional teams, you hope you don't get to the point where they set the points up that if we would be lucky enough to, beat BG and start beating those single A teams, that you don't get enough points to even get in. So I think that's the kind of fear right now. Other than that, I think it's pretty much the same teams with a few sprinkled in. They really haven't given us officially who all is going to be there and who we're combining with. I think it's going to be pretty much the same, though.
Is it going to change the conference at all? Do you see any kind of...
I don't see it doing that. You never know till it really starts. But I don't see it making any difference at this point.
Who would you like to see come in? If there were teams around here that you could bring into the conference and play them at least once a year, who would it be?
I think Chestnut Ridge was a good member. I think it was neat when Ligonier was in there. I go way back because I played in this conference. I coached in it. I go back to the Northern Cambria days, and, that was always neat. But, our community has changed so much. I think we have an absolutely amazing conference right now. Of course, I'm biased. There was time that we talked to Chestnut Ridge. I mean, I think Bishop Carroll's been a proud program for a long time. There was a time where they were questioning whether they were going to be there, and I know Joe Skura is going to get them turned back around and get the numbers back out again. So I would love for it to stay the same, because I have to tell you, I go and you come and present to that group. I love that group of ADs. I love working with them. They've helped me get to where I'm at right now. So I would like to see that stay the same. But, we're always looking to better ourselves, and I would never rule out the chance of being 14 teams. We have to take 2 in, and there was a time we looked at Ligonier and Chestnut Ridge both. So for Chestnut Ridge and what they've gone through to get games, I'd like to, sometimes see them go in if I could pick one team, because it's got to be tough on their kids and Max that always kind of looking for games.
Last question. 2016, what are the biggest changes, if any, we're going to see with the Greater Johnstown Trojan?
All blue uniforms, first of all.
Look forward to seeing that. It'll look neat on TV.
I don't know how many changes you'll see. Obviously, you'll see a change at quarterback, but we have a lot of guys coming back who are real hungry. They were right back in the weight room on Monday, and somebody had told me, I think, that this is the first time we had made a deep run and had everybody back. So we're really excited about that. We'll see if, due to commitments, what guys can stick around town and are able to stick with our program. I don't think we'll see major changes in the coaching, but I think we'll see some. But most consistently, I think you're going to see, this new found emphasis on running the ball. As much as we love throwing it around and putting up those numbers, you win the ball and run the ball and play defense and win championships. That's how you win when it's cold. I'm proud of these kids because they broke some things that we couldn't be Clearfield, couldn't win on the road, and couldn't win in the cold, and they did all those things. So I think you're going to see a pretty polished team, God willing, and we stay healthy, of experienced guys who have got this point, the program close to where we want it to be.
Well, we look forward to seeing you guys play. Look forward to seeing you on game tape, and we thank you again for coming down to
Thank
Route
you so
219
much.
to see us.
Thank you.